A rainy, neon-lit street in a rough part of town. Sarah, a young woman with tired eyes and worn-out clothes, is standing under a flickering street lamp. She looks terrified. Wolf, the president of the Iron Demons MC, pulls up on his roaring Harley. Sometimes life doesn't just give you lemons. It throws them at your head until you're bleeding in the gutter. Sarah was at the end of her rope. After her husband passed away in a factory accident, the debt collectors didn't offer sympathy. They offered threats. With a 3-year-old daughter at home and an empty fridge, she was desperate. She had spent all day looking for a job, any job. But the world just kept slamming doors in her face. Tonight, she was standing on the corner of 5th and Main, a place where souls are sold for pennies. She felt like a ghost in her own skin, ready to do the unthinkable just to buy a gallon of milk. That's when the thunder started, but it wasn't from the clouds. It was the low-end rumble of a big-bore V-twin. Wolf, the boss of the Iron Demons, rolled up. He's got arms like tree trunks and a face that looks like it was carved out of granite. He's the kind of guy people cross the street to avoid. He saw Sarah, saw the way she was shaking, saw the fake smile she tried to put on as she approached his bike. "How much?" she whispered, her voice cracking like thin ice. Wolf didn't answer. He just stared at her with those steel-blue eyes that seemed to look right through the act. He saw the wedding ring she still wore on a chain around her neck. He saw a woman who was about to lose herself to the dark. Stay tuned, because Wolf is about to do something that defies every outlaw stereotype, and the reason why he takes her to his cabin is going to leave you absolutely floored. We're talking about a secret debt that goes back 10 years. Wolf's rugged, secluded cabin. He opens the door and gestures for Sarah to enter. The room is warm, filled with the scent of cedar and old leather. Sarah is tense, expecting the worst. Wolf didn't negotiate. He didn't even say a word. He just handed her a spare helmet and growled, "Get on!" Sarah was terrified, thinking she'd just made a deal with the devil himself. They rode for 40 minutes, leaving the city lights behind for the deep, silent shadows of the pine forest. When they reached his cabin, Sarah's heart was hammering like a trapped bird. She walked inside, expecting the transaction to begin. She started to unbutton her coat, her hands shaking so hard she could barely move. I'm ready," she said, her eyes fixed on the floor. Wolf was at the fireplace, throwing a heavy log onto the embers. He turned around, his shadow towering over her. "Ready for what?" he asked, his voice a deep, gravelly hum. "You paid me. I have to—" Sarah started, but she couldn't finish. She broke down, the weight of the last 6 months finally crashing over her like a tidal wave. She sobbed, her knees giving out. But instead of taking advantage, Wolf did something shocking. He caught her. He didn't grab her with lust. He held her with the steady grip of a man who knows what it's like to be broken. He sat her down in a big leather armchair and handed her a glass of water. "Eat the soup on the stove, Sarah," he said, his voice surprisingly soft. "I didn't bring you here for that. I brought you here because I knew your husband, Jim. And Jim saved my life in a bar fight in 15. I don't take from the families of heroes. I protect him." Wolf shows Sarah an old framed photograph on his mantel. It's him and another man in army fatigues, both smiling. Sarah recognizes her late husband, Jim. Sarah stared at the photo, her jaw practically on the floor. She never knew Jim had biker friends. Jim was a quiet man, a family man. But Wolf explained that before the factory, before the marriage, Jim was a brother in arms. "Jim wasn't just a worker, Sarah, he was a soldier. He pulled me out of a burning Humvee when nobody else would move. I've been looking for his family since I heard about the accident. But you vanished." Wolf had spent months tracking her down, only to find her on the worst night of her life. Because this story isn't just about a rescue, it's about a conspiracy. Wolf told her that Jim's accident at the factory wasn't an accident at all. Jim had found out that the company was dumping toxic waste into the local water supply, and he was going to blow the whistle. They didn't just kill him. They made sure his family was left with nothing, so they couldn't fight back. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air. She realized she wasn't just a widow, she was a target. Wolf leaned in, his face lit by the orange glow of the fire. "They think you're alone, Sarah. They think you're weak." But they forgot one thing. Jim was an iron demon in spirit. And that makes you family. And we don't let family sell their souls to survive. Wolf had a plan to take down the company, but it required Sarah to be the face of the lawsuit. He wasn't just offering her a meal. He was offering her a sword. Sudden headlights cut through the cabin windows. Black SUVs are approaching. Wolf's expression changes from mentor to predator instantly. He grabs a heavy shotgun from under the table. The moment of peace was short-lived. The company, Apex Industries, had been watching Sarah. They saw a 250-pound biker pick her up, and they knew their secret was in danger. 3 black SUVs screeched to a halt in the gravel driveway. Men in suits with security patches stepped out, brandishing silenced handguns. They didn't come to talk. They came to clean up the loose ends. Wolf didn't panic. He'd lived his whole life for the scrap. He looked at Sarah and pointed to a hidden trap door under the rug. "Get in there. Don't come out until you hear my bike whistle." Sarah scrambled into the dark as the front door was kicked off its hinges. But these suits made a fatal mistake. They brought city tactics to a mountain man's house. Wolf turned off the lights and became a shadow. In the pitch black, the only thing they could hear was the metallic clack-clack of his shotgun. He didn't just fight them. He dismantled them. He used the layout of his own home to trap them in the hallways. One by one, the adjusters were neutralized. Wolf wasn't just a biker boss. He was a tactical nightmare. He didn't want to kill them. He wanted them to talk. He pinned the lead agent against the wall, his massive hand crushing the man's windpipe. "Tell your boss that the Iron Demons are coming for his throne," Wolf growled. "And tell him he's going to pay back every cent he stole from this widow." With interest. The Iron Demons MC Clubhouse. 50 bikers are lined up, their chrome gleaming. Sarah is standing in the middle, wearing Jim's old jacket that Wolf found. She looks strong now. Word spread through the club like a wildfire. The Iron Demons didn't care about corporate law or official channels. They cared about the widow of a man who had saved their president. Wolf called a mandatory meeting. He stood on the stage, Sarah by his side. "Brothers," he roared. "Apex Industries thinks they can kill our kind and leave their families. To rot on the streets. They think they can force a good woman into the dark just to fill their pockets. What do we say to that?" The roar that followed shook the very foundation of the building. It was a symphony of revving engines and shouts for justice. They didn't just go to the police. They went to the media. Wolf had his tech guy, Sparky, leak the documents. Jim had hidden. Documents that Wolf had recovered from Jim's old locker at the club. Within hours, the CEO of Apex was being hounded by reporters and federal agents. The company's stock crashed, and the evidence of the accident became undeniable. But the best part? The Iron Demons rode to the factory, 200 bikes deep. They didn't fire a single shot. They just stood there, a wall of leather and steel, ensuring that Sarah could walk into the front office and demand the settlement her daughter deserved. The suits were terrified. They realized that you can buy lawyers and you can buy silence, but you can't buy off a brotherhood that has nothing to lose and everything to protect. A few months later, a beautiful new suburban home. Sarah's daughter is playing in the yard. A line of bikers pulls up. But they aren't here for war. They're here for a BBQ. Wolf is holding the little girl on his shoulders. Justice is a dish best served with a side of chrome. Sarah won the lawsuit, securing her daughter's future and cleaning up the town's water supply. But she didn't just get her life back. She got a whole new family. She never went back to that neon-lit corner. Now she spends her weekends at the clubhouse, running the Jim Memorial Foundation for struggling widows. She learned that even when you think you're at your absolute lowest, there might be a wolf waiting in the shadows to pull you back into the light. Wolf himself changed too. He wasn't the lonely boss anymore. He had a niece to spoil and a legacy to uphold. Every time Sarah looks at the photo of Jim and Wolf on her mantle, she remembers that night in the rain. She remembers how she couldn't go through with selling her soul because a man of honor reminded her who she really was. Life is a long road, and sometimes the wrong side of the tracks is where you find the most righteous people. Sarah, the widow who almost lost everything, became the heart of the Iron Demons. And Wolf, he proved that the loudest engine in the world is nothing compared to the quiet promise of a brother. Friends, Wolf and Sarah's story reminds us that honor is never truly dead as long as we stand for each other. If you think those corporate suits got exactly what was coming to them, smash that like button right now. And if you want to see more stories where the bad boys are the only ones doing the right thing, hit the subscribe button for Highway Ghost. We are here to bring you the grit, the heart, and the raw justice you won't find anywhere else. Tell us in the comments, would you have trusted Wolf that night in the rain? Stay loyal, ride for the truth, and we'll see you in the next one.